Good evening, everyone, and welcome to York Observatory's Teletube, the online astronomy and astrophysics program written and presented by students, faculty, alumni, and friends of York University. We are broadcasting live this evening from Ellen I. Carswell Observatory, located at York University in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. This is not our usual broadcast time of Wednesday night. We are, in fact, broadcasting on a Friday night tonight for a special eclipse recap event. This is a shorter episode than usual, but we are going to go over the recent lunar eclipse, which we were actually able to get live viewing of from not just York University, but also Killarney Provincial Park via our Astronomer in Residence program. Just as a reminder, during this show, if you have any questions or comments about this or past shows or suggestions for future topics, you can always send us an email at observe@yorku.ca. And you can also connect with us on Twitter or Instagram with the handle @York Observatory and find us on Facebook at LNI Carswell Obs. This is Dr. Elena Hyde. I'm the director of the observatory, and I'll be giving you a little bit of a recap of our fabulous lunar eclipse. So I'm going to actually see if I can get a transfer to work. All right, almost. So we're going over to our live footage of the lunar eclipse. Now, just as a reminder, this is live as of Sunday night. So that was Sunday the 15th going through to about 1 a.m. on Monday morning. This footage is going to be intermittently live, and I will give you an intro and an outro to the various live sections. So starting off our evening footage, we're going to go all the way back to Sunday night, and we're going to listen to Sunna Withers setting up the 1 meter telescope at York University.
So this is just a demonstration of what our 1 meter telescope software looks like. This is our sky viewer here. And with this amazing 1 meter telescope, we can just click on any object in the sky viewer and click go to, and the telescope will drive to it. We don't have to do any alignment or anything like that that's necessary with other telescopes. It's a very quick and a very easy process. We can't open up our 1 meter telescope just yet because the weather is not looking good. There's a very high chance it might rain, so we need to play it safe and just not open the telescope. But in the meantime, we can show you some pictures that we have taken with our 1 meter telescope. Just in the meantime, so these were all taken with our new 1 meter telescope. Some of these images are the first images that were ever taken with the telescope, but many of these are galaxies and star clusters and nebulae that we've been able to see and get amazing pictures with, thanks to the amazing optics on the telescope.
That was live from Sunday night. So thank you, Sana, for the wonderful introduction. As you can see in this recap episode, we're getting a little bit of a replay of what happens when it's cloudy. It was partially cloudy on Sunday at York University. We were a little bit worried about our 1 meter telescope. Of course, it being a very, very nice telescope, we did not want to expose it to the elements. We, on the other hand, were all out on the atrium, which is on top of the parking garage roof just across from the main observatory, taking out smaller telescopes that we could quickly move inside if rain did materialize. So what you're seeing now is a little bit of background footage that Sana was playing while all of us were over on the atrium, scrambling around with telescopes, trying to set up a projector, and of course, sending messages out to our astronomer in residence, Blake Nancaro, to see how the skies were there. And here we go. This is actually our first connection image over on to Killarney Park. Of course, we're doing a transition here, going back and forth in time. So I'm going to actually go back to my previous self and give you the live from Sunday introduction. Let's try that intro one more time. This is the moon that you're seeing. That what haziness is through the trees of Killarney Provincial Park from our astronomer in residence, Blake Nancaro, who's out there right now at the certified dark sky site getting pictures of the moon. We'll be in and out with audio today, folks. This is a little bit of a test broadcast, if you will, but that is the moon right now, real time, that you all are seeing through the Killarney Provincial Park Observatory eyepiece. So this is our astronomer in residence partner. We are sending people out there all summer, this whole summer, to run the observatory and to do tours and look at fabulous things like, of course, the moon. Undergoing, hopefully, an eclipse. So fingers crossed for the rest of these clouds to move away and we'll be able to watch some of the eclipse go by. So we're hopping back and forth in time. And as you can see that on the night, we were scrambling in order to get set up because, just as a timeline, we're trying to track from 9:30 p.m. in Toronto all the way through to total full eclipse, or the maximum total eclipse, which is 11 minutes past midnight. So that was several hours of observing. We're not going to play all of that here in this particular episode, but if you do want to see the several hours long footage, that is back on our playlist under the live footage for this particular episode. So as you can see now, we're actually setting up checking our telescopes on campus. We did have a partial view of the partial eclipse at York University, but the weather at Killarney Provincial Park was so much better. We actually stuck with their live stream for almost the entire night. And so what I'm going to do now is go a little bit faster in time. So we're not following linear time anymore, which is one of the advantages of doing an eclipse recap. So this was roughly 9:40 p.m. So the penumbral eclipse had begun, and we're getting up to the partial eclipse, which was 10:27 p.m. Full eclipse started at 11:29, and of course that maximum eclipse at 11 minutes past midnight. So the 1 meter telescope at this point during our eclipse run had still not been able to open. So let's go ahead and go back live on Sunday night, where we finally got the full connection from our astronomer in residence, Blake Nancaro. Welcome back, everyone. This is Dr. Elena Hyde. I'm just chiming in from York University, where it is a little cloudy tonight. Our crew is up on the roof of the atrium, trying to tease out any kind of images they can. However, we are lucky enough to also have our astronomer in residence, Blake Nancaro, all the way out at Killarney Provincial Park, where this image is coming from. You can see the image of the moon now. The waviness there is probably a little trees or clouds passing in front. Probably clouds. It is pretty cloudy all over Ontario, but it's a lot less cloudy out at Killarney than it is here at York. So we're able to bring you this live view of the moon. We are doing a total lunar eclipse tonight. It's only 10 p.m. The penumbral eclipse has started. That was started at about 9:32 p.m. on time in Toronto. And the partial eclipse will begin at 10:27. So that's right, it's 10:11 now. The partial eclipse begins in just a few minutes. From Killarney Park, there's great views, all things considered. And our full eclipse will be at 11:29. That'll be the start of the full eclipse. And the maximum eclipse will end around midnight, or 11 minutes past midnight to be exact. So make sure to look uppity if you are in anywhere near clear skies in Toronto or in Ontario altogether. So we are looking forward to bringing you lots more eclipse facts over the night. We will be chiming in occasionally with fun facts like this, and we will leave the live imaging going for as long as we can leave the telescopes open. Just as a little bit of quick facts for this eclipse for anyone who's tuned in tonight, this is a 100% lunar eclipse. That means the moon's area, the moon's surface that we can see, is totally covered by the darkest part of Earth's shadow, or the umbra. Now, this eclipse overall lasts almost 5 hours, which means if it gets clear at any time in the next few hours, you have a good chance of seeing it. The totality, or the part where it turns really, really red, that's only about 1 hour and 25 minutes, but that's still very long compared to other kinds of things we might try to see. Also, just a little FYI, this is a lunar eclipse, and an eclipse never comes alone. A solar eclipse always occurs about 2 weeks either before or after a lunar eclipse. There can be 2 eclipses in a row, but sometimes 3 in the same eclipse season. The next lunar eclipse is actually this year on November 8th, so you will get another chance if you are all clouded out for this one. All right, so we are still watching the moon live from Killarney Provincial Park. It has gotten a little bit cloudier. Looks like we're having a bit of trouble bringing the image through, but we will keep on trying and keep on chiming in with fun facts as we have them for the moon. And just as a little reminder, we've got only about 10-12 minutes to go until the partial eclipse begins. So we'll check in with you all then. All right, now coming back to the future, I'd be interested to know, those of you who are listening, how many other video broadcasts you've managed to catch where the presenter is actually broadcasting with themselves at a previous time. So this is Dr. Hyde for the current broadcast. That was me last Sunday there. As you can see, we are going into that partial eclipse currently faster and faster and speed up so that it won't take us 5 hours to get all the way through to the partial eclipse. And what we're going to do is leave the live footage from Killarney Provincial Park, which is what we had playing on the atrium. So our atrium location at York University is, as I mentioned before, up on the parking garage roof. And we have a projector hooked onto the screen so we can watch live imaging from other telescopes as well as use the smaller telescopes up there. So we're going to go into a transfer mode. And actually, this is where we had on the night switched telescopes. So this is a transfer mode where we're switching telescopes between the larger telescope with a smaller field of view and the smaller telescope with a larger field of view. So here we go, back in time again. Greetings, everyone. This is Dr. Hyde back again. As you can see, we are still live from Killarney Provincial Park. We're going to take a quick intermission and hop over to some stock images from the York University telescope. As you can see from our closest satellite, we've got some really great resolution on these features, craters, different types of little pock marks, some sort of lines that we can see. We really zoomed into the moon, as it were. So while we're waiting for our Killarney friends to do a bit of rearranging on their end, let's go ahead and look at a few things about the moon. So you might be wondering why we're so interested in watching the moon move into Earth's shadow. Well, that is because Earth's shadow is, of course, larger, because Earth is larger on the moon, and the moon's shadow is on Earth. So lunar eclipses are much easier to see, and well, weather allowing, of course. So the moon orbits our Earth at about 400,000 kilometers or so. It doesn't always stay exactly the same distance. Sometimes it gets a little tiny bit closer and appears just a little bit bigger, and sometimes it gets a little bit farther away and appears just a little bit smaller in the sky. And so here's some imaging from our 1 meter telescope on a clear night, showing some of these lunar features. So it takes about a second or second and a bit for light to travel from the Earth to the moon. And you know, if it takes that long, that means that any future moon humans, whatever we end up calling them, will have to deal with a whole interesting range of communications delays. So here are a few more images from the 1 meter. And these were actually taken as part of our undergraduate student observing program. And these dark regions here that are smooth, those are not water, so don't be confused. They're not Mara or water seas like we have on Earth. They're in fact all rocky, all rocky. We think that there was ancient lava that sort of spread across the surface of the moon and smoothed out some areas, leaving less craters in those areas. Of course, there hasn't been anything terribly active on the moon in quite a while, and that might change in the next few years if, of course, NASA and SpaceX and Blue Origin all have their way. So as you are all probably aware, the moon coming around into its full phase means that it is on the side of Earth that the sun is not. It is, of course, because we get to see the light reflected back from the sun on the face of the moon. That's why we see it as a white, bright surface. It reflects sunlight back at us. But in order to reflect sunlight back at us fully and be a full moon, well, it has to be on the opposite side of Earth from the sun. So the sun is literally on the other side of the Earth. And if it lines up just right, of course, Earth can cast a shadow onto the moon. And then it can't reflect light directly from the sun. It only gets bent light and reflected light from Earth. So it will change its color to those longer, redder wavelengths. We actually know that the moon formed around the same time as Earth, but not at exactly the same time. So we think that there was a giant collision between an early Earth object and a Mars-sized sort of object. And out of that came one Earth and one moon. And at that time, the moon would have been much, much closer to Earth. It would have been larger in the sky, 4.51 billion years ago. So if we had that close moon to an early Earth, we would have had very, very violent tides. And in fact, the interaction between the tides of Earth, the moon gravity pulling, this of course affected the moon's orbit. And as the moon pulled on Earth, Earth pulled on the moon and gradually pushed it into larger and larger distances. Now, this push and pull also meant that, of course, the Earth has longer and longer days. So if it seems like the days are getting longer, well, they are actually. So days in Precambrian times used to be just a bit shorter. And the time of the dinosaurs, I believe you had, well, early dinosaurs, as much as 1 hour less in your day. And of course, 4.51 billion years ago, the days were quite a bit shorter. The days on Earth will continue to get longer as long as the Earth and the moon tides continue, because it's a friction system. So this mysterious object out there tonight is not just good for eclipses and entertainment. We can watch craters, but it's also quite fun to think about where it came from, where it's going. So we're going to go ahead and take a short break while this moon images play, and we'll see if we can get back to Killarney Provincial Park. All right, everyone, success. As you can see, we have the 130 millimeter refractor hooked up at the moment from Killarney Provincial Park, showing the eclipse. That's right, the partial eclipse has begun. It is 10:45 p.m. in Toronto at the moment, that means the partial eclipse, which started at 10:27, has come through, and we're now on our way to full eclipse, which will be at 11:29 p.m. This is really, really awesome. So we have a lot of time to talk about your favorite moon base spots, and it is always more fun to have a live view. So not as zoomed in as the images you were seeing before, because those were, of course, from a telescope with a larger magnification and a higher resolution, but we didn't get to see the whole moon. And now with the 130 millimeter refractor telescope, that is a refractor, not a reflector, so using a lens for those of you who are telescope fans, and it's on image capture with a Canon 60D, according to Blake Nancaro. So this is truly amazing footage coming in right now. I am almost speechless. So we have lots and lots of fun eclipse viewing for this evening. It's 10:27 was the partial eclipse start. So this is, almost 20 minutes, so 19 minutes into partial eclipse. So we are now only a little less than 1 hour away from full eclipse begin. Okay, that's me interrupting myself from the past again. And we're going back to the future, to current times, where we will not watch the entire one-to-one replay. So now that we are back in current time, we're going to go ahead and watch the partial eclipse. So as you can see, having a smaller telescope in this particular sense works really, really well. Our smaller telescope allows us to see the entirety of the moon and its eclipsed nature. And you'll note it still looks very white on the side here. And this is going a little faster in time. You can see the partial eclipse getting greater and greater, sort of growing across the surface. That is, of course, because the moon is physically moving into Earth's shadow. So it hits the penumbra and then the umbra, or the darkest part of the shadow. So we can also see a little bit of drift happening in the image. As the eclipse gets larger and larger, the moon moves more and more into a sort of shadow. It almost looks like it's going into a crescent phase. Now that's a little bit due to the telescope, but also due to the sort of nature of light. Until it's completely eclipsed, we actually have trouble seeing the shadow because the white reflecting part is so much brighter than the rest of the moon. And once we hit that total lunar eclipse, we should be able to pull out a very, very nice red color. And so you're watching this in high speed here as the moon goes into lunar eclipse, a little bit of wiggles from the live telescope at Killarney, just trying to keep it sort of on track until we can get to that maximum eclipse and the full eclipse begin, which was at 11:29 p.m. on Sunday the 15th. So here you can see it getting really quite dim here, almost completely going into the eclipse. And as we slowly lose the last bit of fully reflective surface of the moon, we start to be able to see the shadow a little bit better. And so that last little edge of white light is the last piece of the moon that's not in Earth's shadow, slowly moving in. And the drift here is going to be corrected momentarily by Blake Nancaro out at the Killarney Provincial Park. And this is where we lost our tracking for just a second. And here we go, back into the full lunar eclipse. And this was the, of course, full eclipse begin, starting from the full eclipse at May 15th, 11:29 p.m. Now, since this is the full eclipse image, this is the part of our eclipse recap episode that I actually have a little bit of extra information for you all. So this is, let me just do a slight reposition here. Now this is the total lunar eclipse of May 2022. And we have a special dedication, which I'm going to try to pull up for this broadcast, for this lunar eclipse, to Linda Puglia, a Canadian public astronomy educator, an outstanding astronomy educator. Linda was an outstanding person who had a kind heart and a generous soul, and she really made a tremendous, tremendous impact in Canadian astronomy for all of those who knew her. And so this particular part of the lunar eclipse broadcast, I'm actually going to put in the dedication for Linda. And this is from her friends in astronomy, her colleagues in astronomy in Canada. And Linda dedicated a lot of her personal time to the enrichment of those around her. She was involved in Girl Guides, her church, and astronomy education. She volunteered her time teaching astronomy programs at science museums and in provincial parks, much like the Killarney Provincial Park. And so this image that you saw before of the moon is particularly poignant for Linda, who recently did pass away. And we wanted to give a little moment to remember this outstanding Canadian public astronomy educator, Linda Puglia. So Linda, thank you very, very much for everything you've done, and all of your colleagues and everyone who remembers her astronomy. Please take a moonshot to a little moment to remember. She was well known for working tirelessly to instill a sense of awe and wonder in the public through stargazing, and taught the art of astronomy education through mentorship to her fellow educators. She was a real star, as we say in astronomy, and she will be truly, truly missed. So we want to just take this moment to dedicate this particular total lunar eclipse to Linda Puglia and her family. So this is the official dedication, and this was the May 15th total lunar eclipse at Killarney Provincial Park. So we are during the total eclipse part, so it does look quite red now. As you can see, the little haze of darkness you can see on the side, that is actually the clouds nearby. And the clouds moving across every once in a while did cause a few problems, but right near the maximum eclipse, just as we came close to 11:45 and entering midnight, we had clearing, which is what's happening now. The skies cleared over Killarney Provincial Park. And so this was quite a moment for a lot of our astronomers over there who were thinking about Linda and also remembering the total lunar eclipse. So this was maximum eclipse just before midnight. So we aren't quite at the total maximum yet, getting very close here. So we're speeding faster and faster in time through the total lunar eclipse of 2022, May 5th. And as mentioned before in this broadcast, we will get another chance at a lunar eclipse in November of this year, 2022. But this one did clear, not at York, where we were doing the broadcast, but at Killarney Provincial Park. So if you do have friends with telescopes and cameras, it's actually very, very nice to all get together if you're in different locations. That way, if one of you is clouded out, the rest of you can still see all the amazing stuff. See again, near maximum eclipse, quite close to midnight. At this point, it stops being May 15th and starts being May 16th. So if you're watching your calendars, be aware. The lunar eclipse, as that moon moves in an orbit around the Earth, we're going into the shadow. The Earth is blocking the sunlight that is normally reflected by the moon. That's what causes the moon to shine. So instead of light hitting the moon's surface, Earth's shadow hits the surface. And that means that we don't get direct, bright red light. we get kind of a reddish orange. So there is still some light coming back from what's called earth shine, or the light from Earth, but also from refracted light. So the lunar eclipse is pretty fun, and it does go for quite a while. So if you want to see the really slow footage that does last for several hours, that is in another episode. Just be aware. This is the lunar eclipse sort of sped up to what I would say is a reasonable time. So the total lunar eclipse did actually get quite clear skies just at maximum at Killarney Park. And so this was our favorite time of the eclipse, really, because we were able to watch this on the projector. Actually started raining just after we closed up the last telescopes at the atrium at York Observatory and put away the screen. So it was extremely lucky. So you can see that one side of the moon is starting to appear to be slightly brighter. A little bit of that is a processing effect, but it's also part of the moon sort of continuing to move through. It doesn't stay in Earth's shadow, it gradually moves out of the shadow. And so just like we had a maximum eclipse, I'll go back to a sort of regular speed here. The partial, you go from a maximum eclipse to the end of the full eclipse at 12:53 a.m. or just before 1 a.m. So we are still in full eclipse here. It hasn't reached 1 a.m. yet, but as we go closer to 1 a.m. to 1:30 a.m., the moon starts to get brighter and brighter again because it's coming out of that shadow, and eventually will stop being red altogether. So the lunar eclipse here, we're almost to the end of the live broadcast. We tried to stay as much in totality as possible. At this point during the night, we were watching the clouds roll in and starting to get very worried for our atrium telescopes. So what was happening is we were all behind the scenes, packing up everything, until finally we came back and caught the last bit of this eclipse. And so now, for the last part of this particular eclipse recap show, we're going back in time one last time here, if I can time it just right. We'll go back in time just one more, and we'll see what happened at the end of the night. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for following along with us. Everyone who is still here watching the lunar eclipse viewing live from Killarney Provincial Park. Of course, this is Blake Nancaro and Kathleen, actually from Killarney Provincial Park, who are out there right now sending us these amazing images. This has been Dr. Elena Hyde from York University, the Lunar Carswell Observatory, and our crew has had an absolutely wonderful time. So in the name of Dorsa and Quentin and our whole crew here tonight, it's been absolutely wonderful being here. So we're going to have everyone join in and say, have a good night.
Hi, this is Sergey. Clear skies and have a good night.
Hi, this is Sana. Have a good night.
Hi, this is Nakul, and have a good night.
Good night, everyone, and clear skies wherever you are. And that is the end of our official eclipse recap. So I hope you all have had fun with this slightly faster way to watch a 5-hour-long eclipse. So if you do want the full footage, as a reminder, it is still on our YouTube channel. It doesn't have explanations all the way through, but we will try to put some music in the background for the blank spaces. And as a reminder, thank you everyone who joined tonight for the eclipse recap. You have been listening to LNI Carswell Observatory's special lunar eclipse recap episode this Friday at an unusual time. This is technically a teletube broadcast and is still one of our astronomy and astrophysics programs, which is written and presented by students, faculty, alumni, and friends of York University. Make sure to leave any comments or questions in the comment section of the video. And if you have any questions, you can always send us an email at observe@yorku.ca. And of course, if you like this program and would like to make a donation or buy one of our amazing astrophotography calendars, stars, you can see our website at observatory.info.yorku.ca. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great night and, of course, clear skies to you all.